Without Zahid Valencia, the 184-pound bracket opened up massively at the 2020 NCAA Wrestling Championships. Unfortunately, the weight in the tournament didn't actually happen. So I'm going to tell you what may have happened had the weight actually played out. With guys like Erin Brooks, Taylor Luhan, looking at guys in the ACC like Nino Bonacorsi and Hunter Bullen. What would have happened? What's going on, wrestling fans? My name is Josiah and welcome to Fanco Wrestling. And in this video series, we've been going weight by weight, looking at who would have won every single weight at the 2020 NCAA Wrestling Championships. And without wasting any more time, let's jump into the quarterfinals and the blood round. And the first thing I want to say right off the bat is if you agree with me on everything here, I would be absolutely surprised. I mean, that would be insane here. So please let me know in the comments below what you agree with, what you disagree with, and let's have a discussion. Starting off the top here, with a weight like Taylor Luhan, or with a guy like Taylor Luhan of UNI, who is never All-American in the past, going up against Andrew Morgan of Campbell, who is another guy who's a senior who's never All-American. Now, Andrew Morgan and Luhan have actually wrestled before. Luhan beat him. I see the same thing happening here. Yes, anything crazy can happen at NCAAs, but in this match, I see Luhan moving on to the semifinals. And Morgan will drop down here to face off against Abe Assad. Now, as far as Trent Hyde and Chris Wyler. Now, how did Wyler get into the semifinals? This was a match. The match before this, he wrestled Lou Dupre of Binghamton, and that's a real matchup. If you really look at how these two wrestled and their wins and losses, you would see that match would have been a real toss-up. And I had to give it to Chris Wyler just based on a couple of different reasons. And, you know, some people say, like, oh, this guy, I can't believe you're crazy for not having Lou Dupre in there. You're crazy for not having this guy or that guy or that guy. But if you really look at how things are played out, you look at the stats, you look at guys' styles, you could, you know, see for yourself why things may have happened. And there are upsets that happen every year. Now, Chris Wyler going up against Trent Hyde, what would have happened there? I think with this, Hyde has actually better wins than Wyler does. Wyler's 17-7, so he has a couple of those kind of random losses in there where, you know, maybe not showing that he is as great of a guy as Trent Hyde. As far as these two and how they match up, I would have to give Hyde the advancement into the semifinals. Wyler now moving down here to go up against Taylor Venz, the former All-American. Now, Erin Brooks versus Kam Caffeine. Yes, this match is already happening based on seeds in the quarterfinals. This was, of course, the Big Ten championship match between Caffeine and Erin Brooks. Whenever Erin Brooks won that by a score of 3-2. And it's already happening early on. What would happen here? I think you could see a very similar thing happening. I don't think it'd be a massive blowout. And a lot of Erin Brooks matches have not been. Now, he does have the ability to pin guys. You saw that with Taylor Venz in the Big Ten semifinals. I don't think he's going to pin Caffey or anything, but I do think that he gets the victory and moves on again, and he gets into the semifinals for the first time in his career because, of course, he is a freshman. The freshman phenom, as some people are calling them. Caffey now is going to move down here to face off against Montalvo. Looking at Hunter Bullen versus Nino Bonacorsi, this is another ACC matchup, another conference matchup. Bonacorsi in the round before had him getting a win over Taylor Venz. Venz is a guy who's on, he's off sometimes, but Bonacorsi has been on for this entire last few months. He actually defeated Hunter Bullen in the dual meet whenever they wrestled in a sudden victory score of 10-8. Now, they didn't get to wrestle at the ACC championships because Bonacorsi actually lost to Trent Hyde in the semifinals, but Bullen ended up winning the ACC title, and I think in another tight switch-up, he makes the adjustments and ends up getting the victory, moving on into the semifinals. So, you have now number 2 Bullen, number 3 Brooks, number 5 Hyde, and number 1 Luhan. You know, maybe you had those guys in there, maybe you didn't. So Bonacorsi now is going to move down here into the blood round, the best round of wrestling. And going Taylor Venz of Nebraska, the number 7 seed, going up against Chris Wyler of Lehigh. This is a match for sure a match you would not want to miss if this tournament actually happened. Now, Venz has pinned Wyler in the past in the first period, although that was quite a while ago. I don't think Wyler would end up getting pinned. I already said that Wyler is capable of pulling off those upsets, but because Taylor Venz can turn it on when he needs to, and he does want to become an All-American yet again, somebody who I think a lot of people are just he was underrated, which was, kind of blew my mind that people were not thinking about him. But Taylor Venz gets a victory, moves on into the next round. Mossad versus Andrew Morgan. This is an interesting one for a couple reasons, and one that I threw up back and forth. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do here, what I thought would have happened. Now, you got to look at the stats, you got to look at the statistics, you got to think about what would have happened. Now, Andrew Morgan did lose to Cash Wilkie, who was Iowa's other starter at 84 pounds. That's what happened at the Midland Championships whenever they wrestled. And, of course, the loss to Luhan doesn't help him either. But he's had so many close matches, so many solid victories over guys. And although I think that Assad may have had a bit tougher of a schedule, I think Morgan's victories in beating Nino Bonacorsi and taking Hunter Bolin into sudden victory, I think to me those are a bit more impressive. And as far as how these two would wrestle, I think it'd be a match for sure, a tight match. But I'm going to give it to Andrew Morgan because he is the senior. He's going to move on, and I think. Whereas, Assad has a couple more years in him. Maybe he gets in there. Maybe he could have got in there. That's just my opinion. Now, move on to Dupre versus Bonacorsi. This is an interesting one. Both sophomores. I think the biggest thing to look at here is their common opponent in Hunter Bolin. Dupre has a loss to Bolin, whereas Nino Bonacorsi does have that win, that sudden victory win. Although it was close, it was a win. And because of that, Bonacorsi is moving on into the next round. Looking at Montalvo versus Kam Caffeine. Montalvo, the number 9 seed. Caffeine is actually the number 6 seed. So this is a solid matchup. I mean, every match you get, especially from the quarterfinals onward, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be brutal. Anything can happen. As far as these two, it's going to, like I said, it's going to be a battle. Both have some solid wins. Both have some, questionable losses. But at the end of the day, Caffey's a guy who's Big Ten finalist, Big Ten runner-up, and somebody who has impressed me this season. Caffey's moving on, defeating Montalvo of Okie State. Now, as far as Taylor Venz going up against Andrew Morgan, like I said, Venz can be on and off. Maybe Morgan's able to get the better of him. Maybe he isn't. I think this time he is. I think that Venz moves on to the next round. He's had a little bit more experience than here in these rounds than Andrew Morgan has, and that's why Venz is going to move on. Morgan now going down here to 7th and 8th to claim his first place in his career. Moving on with Bonacorsi versus Caffey. This is an interesting one. This is an interesting one for sure because these two have not wrestled, and it's tough to know what would have happened had it played out. I think Bonacorsi just starts getting on a roll now. In the past, he's like at last year's NCAA tournament, I had some high hopes for him. Didn't necessarily play out, but I think that this year, had he gotten on a little bit of a roll, beating Dupre, and then now possibly beating Caffey, I think he starts getting some hype up, getting some momentum going, and Bonacorsi gets the victory there. And he moves on to the next round. Caffey now going down here for 7th and 8th. And look, Caffey seeded the number 6 seed, going for 7th and 8th. That's similar. That's close. Your seeds don't always turn out exactly how you place. I'm sure if you are a wrestler, you know that. If you follow wrestling, that you know that that's not always what happens. As far as these semifinals, Taylor Luhan of UNI going up against Trent Hyde. Now, this, of course, Big 12 going up against ACC. Some different conferences there. Some exciting competition. Now, Hyde is his first semifinals match. Wrestled Luhan at Cliff Key in Las Vegas before, and the other thing I want to mention is his, he's had a solid season as a freshman. One of his only loss on the year to Zahid Valencia, not his only loss. Hyde, of course, is 23-4 coming into this tournament, but I think Luhan, being the guy who's yet to All-American, yet to claim that spot, I think he actually gets the win over Trent Hyde here and moves on to as an older guy, as a more experienced guy, moves on to the finals, and Luhan moves on, and Hyde is going to now drop down right here. And next up, we have Aaron Brooks versus Hunter Bolen. This is an exciting one because, you know, Brooks is the guy that a lot of people have faith in. Like, what could Aaron Brooks have done this year? He is a freshman. He's an exciting guy to watch. Hunter Bolen, another guy, has kind of popped onto the scene, especially this year, as one of the must-watch guys in the ACC as well as the whole NCAA. Now, I think the thing that's better about, or that may be more experience with Brooks's wrestling, is that his ability to get the fall, get the pin, get bonus points. Bolen doesn't necessarily have that. He has the grit and the ability to win and get those wins. I think Brooks is just able to keep scoring points, like you've seen a couple of those other Penn State guys have in the past. And because of that, I think he's going to be able to take advantage of Bolen and move on into the finals, going up against Luhan. And Bolen's now going to drop down here. And, of course, that is an upset. Number 2 versus number 3. Not a crazy upset, but it is an upset. Now, Bolen versus Venz will finish off these placings, then we'll move on to the finals. Bolen versus Venz. Bolen, ACC champ. Like I said, Venz can be on or off. Bolen is almost always on. Finds that way to win. I think Bolen squeaks it out, comes into 3rd and 4th. Venz now going to move down here for 5th and 6th. As far as Bonacorsi versus Hyde, I still think that Bonacorsi stays on a roll here. Yes, he lost to Hyde at ACCs, but it was a close match. He lost 6-3 in the duel and 3-2 in sudden victory at ACCs. I think Bonacorsi turns that around here. This is, a really believable thing that he can pull off this victory, and I think that he does it, stays on a roll, and goes up against Bolen yet again, a rematch. Now, Hyde's going to move down here to face off against Taylor Venz. Andrew Morgan going up against Kam Caffeine. These two have wrestled earlier on in the season whenever Kam Caffeine got the major decision at the Navy Classic. I think Caffeine gets the win again. I don't think it's by a major decision this time because Andrew Morgan is able to give guys a match, but I do think that Caffeine ultimately gets the victory. As far as Taylor Venz versus Trent Hyde, not Hayden Hyde. The other Hyde's at 157. Taylor Venz, again, I think people were underestimating him. I think he has the ability to score points, to get back on that podium, and he does it here. He's going to defeat Trent Hyde. As far as Hunter Bolen versus Nino Bonacorsi, this is going to be another crazy high scramble match, exciting match. It's just who's going to place higher, and I think both of these guys are going to let things fly and see where it takes them. I think at the end of the day here, because Nino Bonacorsi is able to flow with guys a little bit better, maybe a little bit more defensive. I think that because of that, Bonacorsi is ultimately going to end up in 3rd place, and he's going to keep that roll going from the Prey to Caffey to Hyde, now to Bolen, and he ends up getting 3rd place. What a tournament it's been. But let's move on to the big one, Taylor Luhan versus Aaron Brooks. Who is going to win it? Now, Luhan had a couple of early losses on the season to Hunter Bolen, to Hyde at the Cliff Keen Las Vegas. Even though he did just beat him, hypothetically, in this bracket, he does have an early season loss to him at Cliff Keen Las Vegas. Now, he has been on a win streak since that time. He's been winning, like in Big 12s, and then, all the way into NCAA Tournament. Has been on a win streak. Never All-American, a senior. Looking at similar victories, Brooks, on the other hand, the young guy, the freshman coming in for his first potential NCAA finals. How's he going to do? He is the Big Ten champ, so it's Big Ten versus Big 12 champ, which is always exciting to see those conferences go against each other. Had his red shirt pulled, so it's young buck versus the old veteran. What's going to happen here? Looking at similar matches, similar common opponents, would have to be Taylor Venz. Taylor Venz is somebody who, Aaron Brooks, coming out a couple months ago, lost to Venz, but then was able to pin him at the Big Ten championships. Something, like I said, Brooks is able to score from any position, able to get those extra bonus points. Whereas looking at Taylor Luhan, he has just been consistent against a guy like Taylor Rance, majored him, beat him by decision. He's able to just get those victories. And I think because Luhan has the driving force now, he's going to let things fly. You know, he's never All-American, but this time he's in the NCAA Finals. I think it's a story, one of the stories of the tournament, and Luhan ends up getting the victory and is your champion at 184 pounds from Northern Iowa. Now, please let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you're interested in checking out the next weight at 197 with some exciting matchups, looking at Colin Moore, Noah Adams, Ben Darmstadt, what's going to happen? You can check that out right here.